All right, Saagar, what are you looking at?
Well, the veneer of Joe Biden for president is being slowly unraveled to the point of imminent political collapse. New York Magazine's Olivia Nuzzi paints a sorrowful portrait of the former vice president, whose campaign is bloated by Democratic establishment insiders and even a former Secret Service agent who follows Biden around to project what she terms big presidential energy. I don't know why exactly, but having an employed former Secret Service agent to protect the aura of the presidential electability is just about the perfect exemplar of the Biden campaign. Nuzzi puts it best perhaps in this paragraph. Quote, "For many of these staffers, the campaign feels like it should be a coronation. Joe Biden 2020 isn't a labor of love or ideology. It's about the proper order of things. It's about who's entitled to what. It's the vehicle by which the Democratic Party establishment arrives once more to power, the displaced Obama and Clinton professionals reinstalled to the levers of power." This, perhaps more than anything else that I've ever seen, boils down the Biden campaign to its essence. Biden is simply the vehicle thrust upon all of us in order for the army of K Street lobbyists, consultants to restore the cash cow that was the presidency under Barack Obama. A Biden campaign restores the natural order of things, in which oceans of outside money groups coalesce around the White House with advisory councils and trade meetings. He resets the clock on a multi-billion-dollar machine that has been disrupted. And that's what America rejected in 2016. There is very little evidence that anybody outside of Washington wants this. Biden's campaign numbers show one on complete life support if his current trends continue. As I discussed on Friday, a Politico report from Thursday tells us that less than 1/3 of Biden's donations are small dollar donations less than $200, the lowest number in the entire race. That means that Biden is wholly dependent on big dollar donors to keep his campaign afloat. And guess what? Even they are starting to realize it's probably not going to work out. The New York Times reports that Biden's finance director sent an email to bundlers proclaiming, "We need you to dig deep," while trying to ensure them that what they had enough money in order to keep the entire enterprise afloat. The Times also said that Wall Street donors feeding Pete Buttigieg at one of his recent latest big dollar fundraisers felt that, quote, that Biden already had lost. That is a very bad place to be. Ultimately, what the former vice president is doing is trying to convince us all that the real metrics that matter for campaigns don't matter simply because he's already generally well known. Don't forget, people, the very own president that he served under won't even endorse him and has no problem endorsing Justin Trudeau in the Canadian election. Biden really wants us to believe he asked Obama not to endorse. Let's take a listen.
Because I want to earn this on my own.
Did he offer to endorse you?
No, we didn't even get there. I asked him not to. He said, okay. I think it's better. I think he thinks it's better for me. I have no doubt when I'm the nominee, he'll be out in the campaign trail for me.
Yeah, sure. Biden's crowds, well, they're lackluster. His money raised from actual supporters, well, it's not really around. General enthusiasm for his candidacy, that doesn't really exist. Ultimately, this is a lesson that 2016 forever broke the backs of those who try to cloak what is good for the American people in just the traditional way of doing things. It resounded not just through the Republican Party, but the Democratic one as well. And this is actually great news for all of us. The fundamentals of American elections are shifting before our very eyes. The democratization of the internet means that traditional channels of stovepiped information can be gone around, and it means that you can finally interface with the candidates and actually get to the point of which you need, in which you need to find out who you should actually support. And, you know, Crystal, I mean, I just think it's fascinating because what's going on with Biden is really just this traditional, old school media campaign. I know we're going to get to this later, but the fact that he sat down with 60 minutes, right? Like, he has the 60 minutes and the ticking clock, and that's the only interview that he's done in like 6 months.
Right.
Like, he doesn't do any interviews. He doesn't
barely
do
campaigns.
gaggles. He doesn't campaign. In that New York Magazine profile, Olivia Nuzzi talks about how his campaign is basically in the candidate protection program,
right,
where his staff goes through so many different hurdles in order to keep him behind a wall.
Right, and the one thing he does do, which is fly around on a private jet to fundraisers, isn't going so well either. I mean, a lot of the Obama bundlers, forget about Obama himself, by the way, it's so funny, his whole like, oh, I told him not to endorse, okay, sure. But a lot of the Obama bundlers haven't come on board. You know, he clearly, he has this Dave Weigel pulled this interview from him from a year ago, back in 2018, where first of all, he bizarrely claimed credit for
We talked about this on Friday.
Bernie not having a super PAC, and was like, because how can people trust you if you don't have a super PAC? And then now here he is, like, now that he can't raise the money and is looking desperate, he needs a few millionaires and billionaires to be able to like pull him across the finish line. I will say though, don't underestimate the chance that he could win the primary.
Yes.
I mean, it is. Look, his money sucks. His campaign is lackluster. The organization is lackluster. All of that, and yet he's been fairly stable in the polls. So it is not out of the realm of possibility that he could end up being the nominee. And I think it's a complete disaster. Trump will destroy him on the debate stage. Are you kidding me?
He truly will. And that's, Ryan Grimm and I talked about this on Friday, which is basically that by greenlighting the super PAC money in order to prop him up in a lot of these states, he's effectively guaranteeing that his name ID will remain relatively consistent, and he'll be able to push back with the help of a few billionaire donors. That actually could be enough to carry him across the finish line in the primary, right? Because his voters and his supporters are the lowest information people in the Democratic primary. A lot of them are generally they're not really ideological, they're somewhat moderate, and they want to beat Donald Trump. That actually could be enough to put you across the finish line, maybe for a third place showing in Iowa and New Hampshire. Keep that support going in South Carolina and Nevada, and especially in Super Tuesday if they have the super PAC support to bolster him there. It's absolutely a strategy which could push you across the finish line for the primary, but it is not going to carry you through the general election. It's just not. The Trump campaign is a truly grassroots effort. $44 average donation, 98% of their donations less than $200.
Yeah, the other part of that Olivia Nuzzi piece that is very interesting is honestly she makes the case for him better than his own campaign has through the eyes of the people who do support him and connect with him on this human level around the pain and grief that he's suffered in his life. That nostalgia runs deep, and it's a real thing in the primary. In the general election, won't be enough.
We'll see.